Good evening. I'd like to call the Gurnee Village Board regular meeting of June 4th, 2018 to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
Hood.
Here.
Thorstensen.
Here.
Jacobs.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Garner.
Here.
Balmas.
Present.
6 present.
All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. It's nice to have a full house for a meeting. So first up is public comment. If you'd like to address the board for a matter that's not on the agenda, you can come to the microphone and state your name. Your address is voluntary, and you can also state your position.
Good evening. My name is Steve Carlson. I live at 36235 North Mill Court, Granwood Park, unincorporated Gurnee, and I have the honor of being your county board representative for the last 16 years now. I have come here at Her Honor's request. We talked at SMC a little bit, and she suggested I come by. And first, I'd like to offer congratulations and thank you for your path along Knowles Road. Last Tuesday, the Lake County Forest Preserve Board, in which I serve, authorized the addition of a path directly from Data and 45 into Third Lake into the Rollins Savannah Forest Preserve. So those of you that cross there won't have to snake through Third Lake, which will also make them happy. After this meeting, I'm on the way over there because they kicked in $30,000 for this. But in any case, congratulations and thank you for that. And I was here initially to make a request, but I'm told I think that I don't need to. There's a de facto path, basically from the terminus of Knowles on the north side to Rollins Road. It's a bike path, people walk through there. And I know you're going to put a water tower in there, so my concern was if you would block the path with the water tower, with security or fences or whatever. Scott indicates to me that that's already in your master plan, that there will be a path north from there already. So again, I thank you for that, and I don't have to ask you for it. But related to that, we will then be working with Lake Dot and IDOT to do everything I can to make sure there's a safe pedestrian crossing, not only at Data and Knowles, Data and 45, but also at Rollins and Grand.
Oh, okay.
That's a very dangerous intersection to walk across. And then you combine that with the fact that the Granwood Park District has plans to put a walking path along their lake all the way up to Hutchins, which will then connect with Mill Creek Forest Preserve. And so all of Western Gurnee will have access to many, many more miles of bike path and walking path. So I thank you very much for your contribution to this. And now I'm off to Third Lake to thank them.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing that, and I do find that Scott's usually 10 steps ahead of me most of the time, so thank you, Scott, for coming in, and the whole walkability is great, so thank you. All right. I sense that you guys want there's somebody else who wants to talk, so welcome.
Oh, me?
Yep.
Yes, hi, my name's Martin Peters. I live at 3924 Blackstone Avenue in Gurnee. I'm one of many people representing this group of people. I'm pretty sure everyone is at least aware of why I'm here up on the board.
Yes, I'm well versed on the situation.
Have you been out to Blackstone Avenue?
I haven't, but I work full time.
How
But
many
our
people
village
on the board
administrator, our village attorney, so.
Okay. I guess my question is, and we do have law enforcement here, is we had somebody damage, destroy village property. Many of us called on this. No arrest nothing was done to stop the individual from doing this. And I have a question is why that is, why nobody stopped. On June 10th, I went in and spoke with the supervisory sergeant, and he said it was a civil matter. Now, I have a hard time, I'm not quite sure what code we follow. The Illinois State Code, which I pulled up, which is 720, says wanton destruction of someone else's property is vandalism. And over $10,000 to $100,000, which I feel very comfortable that that falls within, is a Class 3 felony. I was told by the supervising police officer when I went into the village last Sunday on the 10th, that it was a civil matter, and I'm not quite sure why that is. And I don't know if you can give us this information of why that was deemed a civil matter on public property.
It is the village's property. We're aware of what was removed. We're following due process. We're in control of the situation. We have a plan for the stabilization of the banks, and we'll be following through on that. We have set certain thresholds in place that we will follow, but I can let my village attorney weigh in too. But yeah, it is our property. We know what's been going on. We're taking the appropriate steps, and we are responsible for stabilizing the banks along that creek. And that will be done.
I understand the stabilization. I'm wondering what kind of restoration plan is in place.
Well, basically, I can report to you that the village did issue a cease and desist order that has been served on the person that undertook that activity, and they are not to commit any any further trespass to the village property, and they're going to, and they've been directed that they must move the construction equipment from that site. The engineering department is following up with that site, and again, I think you'll see those efforts continue. So the village is actively involved in this site. I think the village does appreciate the information that was provided to the village, and certainly efforts are underway now to make sure that that is a beautiful open ditch or stream area. It turns out that some of the scrub vegetation that was in that area actually might have been was in the works for being eventually removed, but obviously this wasn't the prescribed method to have that happen. So as of right now, there is a cease and desist order, so there should be no activity other than activity undertaken by the village.
May I interject? That was placed last Monday. In the following Tuesday, holes were being dug after the cease and desist order.
Well, actually,
the equipment's been moved. Tractor's still there. Tractor.
All right, wait.
And it still gets turned on. He has the key. I'm just dumbfounded why we can't impound it. That's a weapon, basically, in that person's hands. And giving him an order, the order, Scott issued him a permit after the destruction. And that permit, what it did is it created a veil to all our neighbors like, well, this must be legitimate, and then he continued to destroy, moving to the other side of the property. The permit was put on a tree. I know my next door neighbor said, well, I figured he had a permit, so it must be okay. And our neighborhood looks horrible now. And I read the News Sun last week, Mayor, where you were concerned about, not having Six Flags look run down. And I've read in executive summaries the idea of curb appeal. Our curb appeal is ruined. Our property values are shot. And this all could have been stopped if that person would have been stopped day one, not 2 weeks later. And you have a long list. I believe I see the police out there quite a bit over the 10 years I've lived there. To trust this person with a cease and desist order is just, I can't wrap my brain around it. And he continues to break it.
We have to follow due process. This was
and
a lot of that work.
Why wasn't due process from the get-go?
We're following due process. That's up to our attorney how that goes. That bank restabilization was work we would have done, and that scrub would have been removed. We will restabilize that bank appropriately for how it needs to be done.
Can I show you the pictures of the size of the trees?
Staff has provided me with pictures. If you want to leave them, that's fine.
I have the pictures of the pile of the trees that are as high as this building. That's
yes, we know. And the village is responsible for removing the scrub that's on our property, and we will do that. Yes, we know that it's piled up.
So a full-growth tree is considered scrub?
There was box
And you
elders,
contracted with the private
buckthorn.
individual to do
There was
village
no
work.
valuable trees removed based on what we know on our property. We will remove all of that scrub.
They're trees.
And trees that we would have removed to restabilize the bank, not good trees. You'd have to speak to that.
This side, right here. This was after the cease and desist order. This is what occurred.
We are aware,
Well-
and we're following due
Gentleman over on the
process.
end there has the nicest house in the whole neighborhood, and this is what they did in front of it.
Yeah, you can now see the businesses across the street.
We are following due
you're
process, which
not
may
gonna
not
have-
line up with the actions that you want us to take, but our village attorney is following due process.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we are reviewing the situation. Just for clarity, though, I did not draft that cease and desist until late last week, okay? I think there was some preliminary thought that the situation was under control. It apparently wasn't, and so we are monitoring the situation, and we think that we have the mechanisms in place to make sure there's no additional activities undertaken by anyone other than authorized vendors or contractors or village employees at that site.
May I ask why, to the attorney, why somebody that vandalized the city property isn't arrested?
Well, again, that's something that the investigation's still ongoing, but as you could see, there was some communication with village staff at some stage, and that village staff approached the situation in a way that they thought was going to resolve it. It may not have been as successful as was hoped. At this point in time, with the cease and desist order in place, we have greater measures to enforce what we've laid down as basically do not trespass on village property.
Okay.
We've communicated that as clearly as we can.
So a week later, that's what's done. The permit that I pulled for excavating and grading, there was no performance bond pulled. There was no procedure followed of the permit process, yet a permit was issued. It wasn't followed. To me, that's an illegal permit. There was no plan for tree restoration. Your excavating permit that is on your website states that all this needed to be done. We have not seen any of it. And I'm going to be the bad guy. My neighborhood's destroyed, and I'm the guy standing here looking at 8 people here, 3 that went out. My neighborhood. And you're saying, the village. I'm part of the village. I'm a resident.
The village will be restoring.
And I'm up here, and I'm getting, from day one, from the Sunday I went in, June 10th, this is what was literally shrugged his shoulder and said, civil matter, we sent an email to the police officer. Can you stop this person from destroying property? We sent an email, nothing will be done. Then I went in and I saw Scott. Scott, what can we do? What can you do? He looked at me and did the same thing. Then he pulled me in to see Pat. And we sat down and they said nothing to me. I got no answers because then they had to meet with you. Now I'm here 2 weeks later. More destruction has occurred during this time, which seems to me that the village is now negligent. I mean, the state's attorney, I've already contacted environmental attorney on what our ability as a resident to do, because it's our neighborhood, it's our property values. You have stated all over the place, Mayor, and I thank you for it, that this is important to you, how the village looks. And yet our neighborhood looks like a war zone right now. And I hold you guys responsible for not acting quickly.
All right, I appreciate your comments.
My name is James Eimerman. I also live across the street from this incident. Retired contractor, done some work in the city through the years, most of my work on the North Shore. I'm very familiar with the process to obtain a permit for a project of this scope. And, you know, I'm really not disturbed with the person that did the damage. You're saying you're following due diligence, and I respect that. I understand the laws. I've dealt with building codes and laws my whole life in my projects that I've worked in. You're stating that you're doing due diligence. You thought this was a process that was going to relieve this problem, and this cease and desist order would take care of the problem. You have the information available to you through the engineering department, through the police department, that this person does not respect the law, does not understand the law, does not care what anybody says. And on a Sunday morning, 2 weeks ago, a holiday weekend, Sunday morning, a piece of equipment showed up in a residential front yard across the street, and everybody within earshot knew that can't be there, and the guy in it can't be in it. There's a big problem there. The real problem starts is when the police are called immediately. They're there 10 minutes. He must have lied to him. All he simply had to say is, could you please show me your paperwork, sir? And if you can't produce the paperwork, we have to stop until the village opens on Tuesday. I don't know what this man said to him, but the police officer or his supervisor has a case file on this guy. The police are revolving doors down there. They know all about this guy. He doesn't pay his water bill until engineering shuts it off. We know, you know, this was a serious problem. Sunday morning, I watched him pull up to the creek, and he's got, I'm not talking about a little backhoe. You can pull a 50-foot tree out with this machine, with one bucket. Or if he gets pissed off at somebody, he can go across the street and be in your living room in 10 seconds. That's a weapon. And you all know, through your police department, that he's capable of doing anything with that. That's a serious problem. That's on you because you knew it right from the start. Right from the start. So it could have been stopped. Instead, 2 days. Tuesday morning, somebody talks, engineering rushes out there. I walk over there. I can't believe you're letting this guy do this. You know what's going on here. You understand the history. Engineering, department, engineering. What are we supposed to do? He works on Sundays and he works at nights. Really, I'm a retired contractor, so I can tell everybody in town if they work Sundays and they work nights, I don't have to worry about the police. I don't have to worry about permits. I don't have to worry about engineering. Do whatever you want. See, it'll come out after you did the work to try to cover it up, give you a permit. So a permit for that project, engineering drawings with updated 100-year floodplains on file. Restoration plan with a tree survey on file. Performance bond to cover costs if anything goes wrong during the project. Possibly FEMA, or maybe the Army Corps of Engineers may have to get involved, because if any of that debris goes into that creek, it's a 100-year floodplain. That's a serious issue. Somebody just said, those trees, it's just scrub. It's just scrub. Right now, you have an unprotected bank, maybe 5, 7, 1,000 feet long. I don't know. Unprotected, eroding. You threw some straw and you threw some grass on it. And the attitude is, that's it. Somebody's mentioned an open ditch here a little while ago. It's a 100-year floodplain. This guy pulled the drainage pipe out from the subdivision across the street. I don't know where that damage is. It's up in their yard somewhere. So, I'm sorry, but I have a much bigger problem with the way you've handled yourself to date. You have not done due diligence. You have not followed your own laws. Engineering broke every rule in the code book when they ran out and put that permit up. If they'd have gone out there and stopped them, you got no liability. When they put that permit up illegally, they broke every rule that you guys have on the books. So I'm really upset. You're really disrespecting us by saying your hands are tied, you need to follow due diligence. You've already failed at all those things.
I did not say our hands are tied. I said we're following due process, which we do with
Then
our
your due
attorneys. Our
process needs to be
attorneys follow
changed. Then your
process.
due process needs to be changed because you did not show me the file on that permit. It should be this thick. There's nothing. Show me the performance bond that you don't have to worry about because his insurance is going to fix this. To repair that properly, you call it a ditch with some scrub. Sure, throw some grass out there and throw some straw. You know what they do with straw and mud over in Peru? They make homes. If you get a 4 or 5 inch rain, that's going to fill that 100-year floodplain with bricks. Right now, maybe mud. To this day, it's not in the scope of work. I asked engineering, before I could ever pull a permit, before all the things I just discussed are approved and in the file, before they'll even let me pay for the permit, I need to have a silt fence inspection that is approved per a silt fence drawing. There's still no silt fence up there. There's nothing. So, I'm sorry, you don't have any excuses, you don't have any answers, and somebody has to fix this. And I'd like to know that we're not going to pay for it with our money, with our tax dollars, or anybody in this city. If I didn't live there, if you guys went over there and made it beautiful for us, I'd be more upset if I lived in the other parts of town, because you just wasted money.
All right. Thank you, sir, very much. State your name, please.
My name's Teresa Peters. I live at 3924 Blackstone. I called, I believe it was the Tuesday after Labor Day, and I was, Memorial Day, thank you. I was told at that time that it had been taken care of and he was just to be cleaning it up. That was the Tuesday before he went to the police department. And it was still being torn apart for 5 days after I was told that it was taken care of. Now, as a mother, thank God I don't have young children in that neighborhood, because I am scared to walk in that neighborhood with him there. Many of us are afraid of this gentleman. Thank God we do not have children this age, with a maniac living across the street with a frickin' bulldozer that you're allowing him to just drive whenever. Take the key away. He's like a 5-year-old child. Take the key. Don't you do that to a 16-year-old that gets in trouble driving? You take the keys. This is a 50-some-year-old gentleman with a weapon that can roam up and down our streets and already has. You're going to let him do that at any time? He still has the key. Obviously, he's still turning it on. He did yesterday. And he's mad. And one of our neighbors had nicely pointed out that there was a long barrel shotgun sitting on the upholstered sofa in the driveway the other weekend, which we hear him shoot. So I guess we have to wait till one of us or our family members or our animals, which were all petrified because his dog has been hit by a car multiple times and I'm constantly chasing it out of the street so it doesn't get hit again. One of us will have to be killed or harmed, or our house is going to have to get knocked over. I can't tell my daughter about this because you know what? My daughter will not bring my grandchildren to my neighborhood in Gurnee because of that gentleman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carl Majeski. I live at 3946 Blackstone. I am directly across the street from what happened. First of all, I appreciate all my neighbors coming, to the neighborhood defense. I think it's beautiful what you just said and what you all did, and everything what they're saying is completely true. I will address one thing I didn't really hear anybody address yet, and that is the east side of the property that he also destroyed, which from what I understand, because I've talked to the Lake County Storm Commission, I think it's called, and I also called the Army Corps of Engineers. I understand that Gurnee owns all the property along the bank of the Mill Creek, is what they call it, I believe. And the city of Gurnee also owns the retention pond from the industrial park that he also destroyed. My concern is this. I've been in that neighborhood. I was the first house east of that creek, the first one to go up. And when that neighborhood started to develop, that's when the industrial park came in. They took down the old drive-in, which I'm sure many of you here, if you were in the neighborhood, probably went to that drive-in. They knocked down the drive-in. They put in the industrial park that's there now. Now, to the village's credit back then, we complained then that they were putting that retention pond way too close to our homes. The village told us at that time that everything would be fine. They've spec'd it all out. They did a nice job planning it, and that retention pond would never flood over into our neighborhoods. Well, they were right. That never happened. They also told us at that time that they would put in beautiful shrubbery on the top and some trees and everything else so that through the years as that stuff grew, it would block the industrial park completely from our neighborhood. Jim and Kim were there at those meetings, and we were told that would all take place. We were hesitant at that time to believe the village that the little bushes and shrubs that ended up getting planted up there would fill in and cover. But you know what? Over 15 years, it did cover. And over the remaining 15 years since that time, because that happened in the early 90s, it filled in so much you didn't even know it was there. Guess what? When I walked out of my house this past week and picked up my Sunday paper on the end of the driveway, and I then looked up and saw the gaping hole that I now have to look at. I don't have 20 more years in my life to wait for that to grow back. So I'm going to address something I didn't hear any of my neighbors address, because they addressed everything else beautifully, in my opinion. I'd like to have the city address, how are you going to replenish that quicker before I die? Because 20 years is about all I'm going to have left.
Well, hopefully
so
more
how
than
do
that.
you address 30 years of vegetation and growth along that berm, not to mention the creek, because that was probably there for hundreds of years? How's the village going to address the vegetation over that berm? And I'm also concerned that that berm is no longer as safe if we had a big 8-inch rainfall, which is getting to be pretty common occurrence around here these days, and that retention pond fills up. Is that going to hold? I don't know. If it doesn't hold, if it runs all into his house, I could care less. But there's no guarantee that's what's going to happen. So I'd like to hear the plan. I'd like to have the village give us a plan on exactly what's going to take place.
All right, sir, I will promise you this, and staff knows that I'll keep my promises on this. So the immediate concern is getting this shut down, the erosion, stopping that, and we will have a plan, and I know staff is working on it, but I commit that we will hold a meeting with the neighborhood before we do any of the work, commence with any of the work, to show you what we do, how we plan to do it. None of it will get done overnight. We'll probably do it in phases. But I will make sure that we meet with you to show you what that plan is before we implement it.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
And that'll give you guys a chance to see what we're going to put in and make suggestions and comment, and we'll work together on that. But I need staff to tell me when they're ready to have that meeting. But I promise you I will have that meeting, and I don't renege on promises when I agree to meet with a neighborhood. But I need to give them a chance to put that plan together. The immediate concern is to shut this down and the erosion control. That's the immediate fire that needs to be put out, and staff's working on that. But we recognize we have to put a plan together for restoration, long-term, on that property, and I will make sure that when that plan's together, we will meet with the neighborhood as a group before we implement or start doing any work. Fair?
I hope from the city, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah.
I hope from the city standpoint, you did listen to my neighbors from the standpoint of the village shouldn't be paying for this. That man, his trust, his building, whatever he has to sell to make this right, he should be held accountable for that.
And our village attorney will look at recourse, but we need to get the work done. We need to get that stuff removed, and we don't want to wait as we go through whatever
Sure, I
recourse we
understand.
have. So,
Thank you.
yes, we're already talked about that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Saunders. I live at 193 North Delaney, which is not right next to the creek, but it's around the corner. And I'm here in support of my neighbors. And I just have one question with respect to the ditch restoration. Is there a plan and a timeline for when that bank stabilization is going to be done? Because every time it rains, you can see the silt traveling all the way down into the river. And I'd just like to know if there's a timeline and a process for getting that stabilization constructed and
Yes,
completed.
we recognize we have to stop erosion right now, and it may be some temporary measures until we have a permanent plan, fund it, and execute on it. But we will meet with the neighborhood before we actually execute on anything. But to stop any erosion right now during heavy rains, and that staff is aware of and working on.
Is that something that's like this week, next week,
Probably
next
be
month?
I know
or-
we did some temporary work out there, and we're in the process of trying to do something more involved to stop erosion.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Jeff Stahl. I live at 281 Jennifer Court.
Yes.
Mayor, you and I spoke about it. I met with Scott on the Tuesday after the holiday, and he told me that they were taking care of the situation. I sat with you,
Yeah.
and you were quite alarmed to hear that he had done all of that without a permit. So my question is that not a felony? Do you not have to have a bond and all sorts of things to do work on city property?
That's part of our investigation. It'll be handled by our village attorney.
I also have the distinction of being one of the members of the board of the Townhouse Association there. And we spent several $1,000s on putting a drain system in there because what the builder had put in was just a spillway. And after 2 or 3 years, there was quite an erosion taking place. So we had a landscaper put in a drainage system. Since then, so 5, 6, 7 years ago, whenever that happened, we haven't had a problem. This gentleman pulled out about 10 or 12 feet of that pipe. So that thing has been destroyed. That needs to be replaced.
Yes, we're aware of that. We will make it right and do it properly.
But it needs to be replaced the way it was, not just a spillway where it can erode again, but the pipe needs to be reconnected and re-put in the way it was.
We'll do it
Okay.
legally according to stormwater management ordinances. Yes, we will follow those.
I also have a unique distinction that this gentleman threatened my life when I was back there and asked him, why did he pull out that drain pipe? He said if I spoke one more word to him, he would kill me. He picked up a rock and said, say one more word, it'll be your last. This is what you're dealing with, and this is what you're trusting. He'll take notice to your notices that he has to stop working on. He doesn't. The damage to the east side of that creek took place after Tuesday, at night and on weekends. But it doesn't seem to matter.
And we're escalating as appropriate, but again, we follow due process with that.
So I have to go on what another gentleman here said. Why is he still able to run around back there with his bulldozer or whatever that thing is called? Why isn't he told to stay off it, take it off the property, take it somewhere else? Why is that?
Some of that has been put in place, and he's been given deadlines. So again, we'll follow due process, and we'll escalate as appropriate, whether that's through the attorney or through the police. But we're monitoring the situation.
What more escalation do you need? You issued an order. He disobeyed it. You had the police down there. He stops until they leave. Then he starts up again. So following due process isn't doing us.
We have to follow due process. We don't just go from here to here.
So
our attorney and our police are managing that.
So
and they're aware of the situation, and they're aware of the gentleman, and they are working together.
So what I'm hearing here is there's no due process to stop him.
Well, no, if you hear, if that vehicle, if that construction equipment is on public property, please immediately call the police.
We've been doing that.
No,
don't.
It's my understanding that he is committed to having that removed. He's been told to remove that. No, I know.
We cannot conduct the meeting if everybody talks out of turn. So if you'd like to address the board, please come to the microphone. I'm not going to cut anybody off. We will stay here all night to hear every single one of you, but I cannot have you speak out, please. Continue, sir.
Okay, you've heard it, and but I just don't see how you're stopping him. You're giving him notices. He's doing it anyway. So the due process that you're saying should stop him isn't working, and you have to have another plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanya Moore. I'm at 3905 Harper Avenue. I do have small children. They're the girl's age right there. And my kids are afraid. He has a restraining order against his sister for threatening to kill her, blow her head off. He shoots a shotgun. I'm more concerned on that. He is crazy. He's walked into people's homes in our neighborhood and said he's addicted to opioids, looking for pain medicine. He has been in our yard looking for evidence because he's convinced someone poisoned his cat. I'm going to start calling the police probably daily if I have to, because I just don't feel like he needs to be in that house. I know he doesn't own the house. I've called his sister. His mom owns the house. She's in hospice, and I think we should try to evict him. He's in the trust, but his mother is the owner of the house, according to his sister. His sister owns business in Lake Bluff. I've already spoken to her. She's got the restraining order against him for threatening to blow her head off. And I think my biggest concern is he continues to get in that piece of machinery every day and threaten all of us, and I want it removed.
All right.
Soon, like today, he's driving it around. And then you mentioned a lot about fixing your property, but his property now looks like a war zone. So what is, eventually it's going to be this tall of weeds. I mean, it's just a mud pit right now. So, I mean, I get you're going to do everything around your property that he's ruined, but he also has to be held accountable for the property he has ruined that he owns, because it looks terrible. There's trees everywhere. And I think that we should look into evicting him from that house and talking to the owners of the home, which is his family members, who are afraid of him, by the way. That's
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Denise Majeski, and I live at 3946 Blackstone Avenue in Gurnee. I'm also the Chief Nurse Executive at Northwestern Medicine Lake Forest Hospital. And yes, I can attest and support the behaviors and the instability of that gentleman that's in question. I also know the family. I also understand the history. We've had a 30-year history with this, so we do understand it. I just want to lend my support to their concerns about the safety of their children, the safety of their animals, and the safety of the neighborhood in general.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Barb Jenkins. I live at 287 Jennifer Court. I live directly behind his property. I have a couple of questions. I'm not going to go into how bad the destruction looks because you've heard that, but I would encourage all of you as public servants who have dedicated your efforts to take care of a village to take the time to come over and see what it is, and then you will understand much more clearly why everyone is afraid of this individual and why there's a sense that one person is dominating the lives of 100 people that pay their taxes, that get permits, that do things the right way. And it does feel like no one is really listening, including you all. So when I moved in, I find out after the fact that I'm on a floodplain. All the trees grow. It looks beautiful. When I first moved in, I had to watch him walk around naked. So clearly, immediately, I thought something is not right with this person. Then he has a dog that he leaves out when it's minus 10 degrees that we hear all night long, which multiple people, I was on the board of the association for a long time. We made phone calls about cruelty to animals. I will say the police were helpful with their information. We hear fireworks going on. I'm pretty sure they're not the kind of fireworks you're supposed to have in Gurnee. They rival Great America at times. He likes to shoot them towards our townhouses. The police were called about that because he gets a kick out of intimidating people. Then there was a time I'm sitting on my deck. He's shooting his BB gun, right? It's going right into my house. So my husband stands up and he yells, "Knock it off," or "We're calling the police." And that just sort of enrages him. This is the history of an individual who was given a permit, which we all agree, we can call him whatever, mentally unstable, imbalanced. You called him difficult to me, which I find so offensive. If he's a difficult person, you need to do something about it. So my question is not about the destruction, but I do want to follow up with all of you. I want every single person to come and see, and then you're going to understand my next question. This man has a history of bonfires. Many people here have called the police. I was the last person prior to the call on Saturday to make the phone call. I know he knew it was me because we're the only house that had lights on behind him. The bonfire, I did not call because he does it all the time, so I waited to make sure it was something dangerous. And then I look on my phone, and the wind is blowing 15 miles an hour, and it's blowing towards the townhouses, and the bonfire is taller than his house, which is a 2-story house. I call the police. They're amazing. I'm sorry to bother you, it's midnight, whatever, you know, the guy on Blackstone, I don't even have to give the address. They go, ma'am, we know who it is. And they come out, the fire department extinguishes the fire, they talk to him, they leave. And 15 minutes later, he stands in the middle of the yard in a rage, yelling, "Are you happy now?" And then he takes giant fireworks and starts blowing them towards our townhouses. Now, clearly, if the weather was dry or something, he could create a fire, but this has happened. I've been there over 10 years. This happens all the time. So we move forward. I don't think any of us is surprised that this happened, that he got a bulldozer. We've all been waiting for something to happen, and it's happened. So now we have this destruction. His yard is a mess, like everyone said. The creek is gone. I eliminated my flood insurance because I felt so confident. And when I talked to the village about all the growth, the stability, et cetera, and now, of course, everybody probably needs flood insurance again because there's nothing to stop it. So here we have a man who's a pyromaniac. Check with the fire department how many times. He has all these dead trees. They're 20, 30 feet high in a pile. My question to the lawyer is, are you communicating with the police? Like, do you know how many times they've been out? This started Memorial Day weekend, it's June 18th. So, you know, in the last, week, the police have been there multiple times. And do they tell you, do you know how bad it is, like from the standpoint of the police coming out and how many times we're calling?
Again, I think this is helpful that you've provided this information because some of our timelines might be different than yours, and this is very helpful.
Okay,
and we
so
will be responding to
all
that.
right, so
and again, ma'am, we need to
is.
separate what's going on with the village property and that destruction from things that are police matters and are being handled by the police.
Okay.
And we are well aware, all of us are up here, Patrick and I even met with the gentleman on a completely different matter, so we are aware of the individual's character. The police are handling some of these things that are not issues with the destruction of the village property.
But wait, it does go together. You're a village, you have a police, a fire department,
the village
you're the mayor,
attorney
and you have the trustee.
is not prosecuting. It will be the police who will charge him when they find reason to.
I still think I have the right to say what you're dealing with because you're not there.
Yes,
you're not
you do
there.
have the right to say.
So here's where we are. You know, you're quoting the law, which I truly respect, and you're doing due process, which I respect. But this has been going on since Memorial Day weekend. It's June 18th, and the destruction happened over and over every time we made a phone call. He just got on it. So now he has a piece of paper, which I don't know if he understands or not. I just know he thinks it's funny because he gets on the machine, he turns it on, and he turns it off, and he turns it on, and he turns it off. Now, since you gave him a piece of paper that said stop, he has moved the bulldozer all over his property, and he's taken down another tree behind me. So he's still doing it. Now, here's where we need help. And I don't know if it's the fire department, the police, but I would surely respect that all of you would work together to take care of 100 people that have been affected by this. This Saturday, right? He gets on the bulldozer and he's driving around the property and he's starting the fire pit, which sometimes is as big as this area. He's started a fire. So I'm watching to see how big it's going to get. When do I call the fire department? I don't want to be the kooky lady that's always calling the fire department, but I can see. And I can really see it now because there aren't any trees left. So he starts the fire. And then I saw some neighbors walking by the property. So he got on the bulldozer. And he's now swinging it around. He took out another little tree. And then he's starting to dump dirt on the fire, like he wants to get rid of it. So they leave. So he builds a fire, and he begins to take the debris that's from the village property, which has been moved to the back of the lot, which is maybe 10 or 12 feet high, and the scrub trees, as you referenced, which some of those trees are 20 and 30 feet tall, are in this pile, and they're becoming dry wood, and he's taking your trees, which are on his property, and he's beginning to burn them. So my next door neighbor, who's on the board now, calls the police, and I can see the whole thing. The police tried so hard to talk to them. They must have been there 30 minutes. They're showing him the paper, and they let the fire go. I don't know why they let him continue with the fire, but the fire was going, and after he left, he went to your trees, which are now getting very dry, and he proceeded to throw them on the fire, setting flames going until midnight. And so the other concern is, I get that you have to have lawyers and you have to have pieces of paper, but we are dealing with somebody who's dangerous, and now you have all this wood, which we thought he was moving this weekend. There were moving trucks, and I was like, thank God, he's leaving. He's just going to leave. He's going to leave the bulldozer, and he's going to go. But he's the kind of person, and I'm not an exaggerator, if you make him mad enough, he's going to set your trees on fire. And he's going to do it to spite you and us and everybody in this village just because he can.
Ma'am, I know you're not exaggerating. I know you are not exaggerating.
But I want you to
and
come
I
and
know
see it. I want
you
you to
are
come and
stating the
see what we're
facts
talking
exactly,
about.
and that is the behavior that we may be able to expect. But again, we're following and escalating as we
I know,
can.
but, okay, this is for the lawyer. What can be done to expedite removal of the bulldozer, the clear? I mean, you can't ask him to clear those trees. In 20 years, he'll clear those trees.
We will clear the trees. That's going to be the village's responsibility to remove those trees, and then we will seek recourse as appropriate.
Okay,
so
like-
we are going
like
to take care of the
urgently-
trees.
Like urgently before he starts another fire. I mean, I really am tired of staying up till midnight and 2 a.m. on behalf of a neighborhood because I'm the one who could see in his backyard waiting for another fire. I mean, ask the fire department how annoying it is. Ask your amazing police that have to
And
deal
no
with
one is
him.
going to think that you're the kooky or nosy neighborhood. If you call
I don't
all the
wanna have to
time,
call
we
in.
will
I want you
respond.
to do something.
We will continue
I
to
don't
respond.
wanna call anymore.
I know, but please do, and no one's going to think anything about you calling or how often. We understand and we appreciate, so don't feel bad about calling.
We got a letter that said call the police, and we are doing that.
Yes.
But this is just for the lawyer. I think lawyers are amazing. I need help here. Okay, ready? If you give him a piece of paper, and this started Memorial Day weekend, help me understand this. Forget his mental state. It's now been 3 weeks, and the destruction is escalated so much, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of everybody. People aren't kidding when they say they're afraid of what's going to happen next. There's got to be something legally that can be done. You coordinating with the police and the fire department or something. I mean, you know, people get taken away to be evaluated all the time when they're a danger to society. We're talking about a man who has a gun and a bulldozer. I just can't wrap my head. I was in government service. I can't wrap my head around people that are treating this like it's a catastrophe and that people's lives are in danger. And I get that you don't know what it's like to live there. But I need you to tell me there's something you can do to expedite it beyond due process.
Well, I can say this. Tomorrow I'll be following up with the police. I want to make the point, though, that in terms of even with the legal involvement, my involvement, it may not have started as early as some of the dates that you documented. Once I did become involved, we made sure categorically everything had to stop. And so that date might be later than what you think. And so we're working through that. And I will say this, you know, there in retrospect, things, I think what we now know, it would have been handled differently at different levels of staffing. But we will look at this again tomorrow. And again, I appreciate the comments. This gives us additional information that we'll be working with, and we'll be exploring that. Each of you, if anyone is fearful of their own safety, I would encourage them, you know, to, that is something that there are methods to pursue, whether it's a protective order for yourself. You'd have to look into that. I mean, I don't want to make it sound easy, but
I get what you're saying, but we'd have to do it for the whole neighborhood. You know, it's that kind of a situation. But I'm going to say something nice about you, because I know this is very heated, and there are a lot of people in here. You're the only person that has actually made it sound like, in retrospect, something should have been done sooner. I can't tell you what that means to everybody here, because we feel like since Memorial Day and tomorrow's June 19th, you know, there's so many phone calls. These people are so articulate. You have so many like construction, engineering people. They know what they're talking about. You know, they're making really intelligent phone calls. They're not like me where I'm just pleading, but they're making really intelligent observations. And, you know, I think it behooves you as elected officials. They have, you know, the Tribune's doing an article right now. They're working on an article about inefficiency and delays in government. And, you know, I don't want to live in a village where I feel like that's what happens, that people don't react fast enough when it's a catastrophe. And I don't mean a catastrophe for a neighborhood, a catastrophe as in flooding and all the serious things that they're mentioning. And people so often feel like elected officials hide behind words or behind a podium or behind a desk. And I know, because I used to be on a board. We need some action. We need someone like you who understands what we're saying and says in retrospect, we should have done something. Well, guess what? The time is now, because this man is a ticking time bomb and something terrible is going to happen. And I don't want to say it's on you to stop it, but it's on somebody. We need some help. We need police help. We need that bulldozer gone. Yeah, that's got to go. He is going to
gone. Can you somebody promise us that that bulldozer is gone? I mean, that's common sense. If I had a bulldozer in my backyard,
ma'am, please wait until you're at the microphone and state your name, and I will give you your opportunity.
So I have been, okay, I'm going to finish. I have been called Chatty Cathy, and that's not even my name. Okay, what I'm going to leave you with, though, is the fact that we need to feel that you all are really hearing what we're saying. This is a man with at least one gun. I don't care if it's legal or not. He shoots it in his backyard. So he knows that we're here. He knows. He's not going to come after you. He's going to come after us. Us that live 50 yards away, us where he can see the house. So I'm telling you again, and I'm telling the police officers, we need some help. This guy is crazy, crazy. And there's going to be somebody badly injured. Who cares if your house goes down? You're going to care when somebody gets run over by that stupid machine.
I don't doubt a single word that you've said.
But can you take his key away? I mean, can you just answer that? Okay, what is due process? I think that's what we want to know. What is due process? What's the next step? Like, how do you get him to? It can't be legal to have a bulldozer that size.
What day did we give up?
Well,
is there any legal way to make him get rid of the bulldozer?
All right.
He's been given Thursday to get the machine.
We'll meet tomorrow. Maybe we can expedite that. You know Willie, right?
Well, then they need to take it away. I mean, this is crazy.
So the cease and desist required that the bulldozer be removed by Thursday. So he is supposed to be supposed to be contracting with someone to come and have the bulldozer removed.
Great.
So
now,
we gave him that period.
Okay. What happens if he doesn't remove it?
Well, you know, we have to go pragmatically. We have to get to that step. But the village, we do have alternatives, and we'll be looking at those. And again, I take seriously what's being said tonight, and we'll be following up with that.
All right. Thank you.
All right. There's someone ahead of you.
She sat down already because
okay.
her question. My concern.
Again,
I've
please
already
state your name.
Myself. I'm Teresa Peters.
Thank you.
And I just want to let you know that sitting here, I have heard a child say how scared he is to live in this village now. Sitting here listening to this, and he doesn't even live in the neighborhood. I'll just tell you that right now. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
making our children scared.
Okay, Carl Majewski, I already spoke. Just a couple suggestions. I don't know if you can do it, but I think you need to look at your budget. And I got to tell you, I didn't know half of the things that were going on at my neighbors talked about. So now I am scared, and I'm usually not scared of anybody. But I think the village needs to put a policeman on the block 24/7 when you got a man like this over there with a piece of equipment. I don't see how you can count on neighbors staying up all night watching to see if he's going to do anything strange, or if he's going to walk around neighborhoods and sit in their backyards because his cat died. You guys have got a serious problem. And I got my brother-in-laws and my nephews, they're all Chicago cops. And I guarantee if this was happening in the city of Chicago, they'd have a cop on that neighborhood 24/7. I don't know what your budget looks like. I know you're tight on budget, but I think you got to have one of these gentlemen with a squad car sitting on that block until that bulldozer's gone, or until you can figure out how you're going to get the guns out of this guy's hands too, because that's a scary thing. So that's all I've got to say.
Our budget is not that tight, and our priority is protecting the neighborhoods, and your concerns have been noted, and we'll discuss.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't want to go any further. I just want to give you a
Just
warning.
state your name one more time.
Jeff Stahl.
Thank you.
281 Jennifer Court. I talked with Derek on night before last, and he told me he was planning a big 4th of July party. So I'm just giving you a warning. You might want to have some people on standby.
All right, thank you for that heads up. And again, no one is ever going to say anything cross-eyed about anybody in the neighborhood calling us until we get this resolved. So, and we'll take note of everything said tonight. But please do not feel like you cannot call the police at all times, anything that you observe. My own police department would tell you that over and over again. We'd rather you call and let us handle than to get involved and take it upon yourself. Just state your name again, because the minutes are read from a tape.
Martin Peters, 3924 Blackstone. We have been calling, and nothing's been done.
I would disagree with that statement.
Okay. I find...
Maybe not done as fast as you would like, but things are getting done, and action is being taken.
But because it hasn't been done as fast, forget if I like it or not, the activities that have happened have only exasperated the situation.
Yes, I would agree with that statement. Yes, I would agree with that statement.
So to say that we should feel comfortable to call, I'm really frustrated right now because all I hear is due process, we're looking into it, we're going to see what we can do, but there's no commitment to anybody here right now. We're going to walk out tonight with no single commitment other than we're looking into it. And that's really unsatisfying. I just want to share that. Nobody here is stepping up and saying, I will commit. I mean, I'm looking, would somebody commit to